Hello everyone, so we're again Lode and Nastasia. We're still working for Memo at Team Expertise. In our earlier presentation we brought you back to the 80s and 90s, and now we're back at the present time. So we're going to tell you about the things we learned while doing a project about social media archiving. So in 2020 we started together with some other projects, a project called Best Practices for Social Media in Flanders and Brussels. It was a 3-phase project. As the name of the project says, it has a goal to develop best practices for capturing, archiving social media in Flanders and Brussels, and also to make them accessible. It was also a project funded by the Flemish government, and there were 14 project partners, mainly archive institutions. So why did we start this project? The situation in 2020 was that we saw that social media played an important role in communicating about social topics. You could notice it in the COVID pandemic, that there was a lot of noise about the pandemic on social media. We at Memo, we had limited experience with archiving social media. We had experiences with archiving just websites, and there was also limited knowledge about this in the archive institutions. So we hadn't archived it a lot. But we had also other questions. It were more legal questions, like is there a legal framework? Are we allowed to archive social media? And can we make these archives accessible? So maybe you have also a lot of questions, legal questions, but that's not covered in this presentation. If you do have questions about this, we can contact you. We can bring you in contact with our colleague who did a lot of research about this topic. So the scope of the project, it were private archives, so archives that weren't public information, so no government archives. So, for example, social media accounts of artists, politicians, activists, architects, etc. We focused on public accounts, so accounts you can access that we can access, so that are private. Also hashtags, that was in the second phase. And we focused us on the most used network services that were Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So everything we did was tested by the project partners in pilot projects, and like I already said, the goal was to develop workflows and a legal framework. So phase 1 was about looking for open source tools, free open source tools, for the capture of social media accounts. We tested these tools. We also developed specifications for the ingest and preservation of these social media archives. So we made SIP specifications and AIP specifications, and we did also research for phase 2. So we explored the market for commercial tools. In phase 2, we used commercial tools, and we also tested this, and we developed a workflow that could consist of commercial or open source tools for archiving social media. And we also did a lot of legal research, our colleague did a lot of legal research. Phase 3 was more about opening up these archives, so exploring the possibilities on what you can do with social media archives. Can we use it in a classroom? Can we use it for researchers? Also a lot of legal research about making it accessible. And we also did user research, so we wanted to know how researchers or consumers want to access these social media archives. And we were also not very involved in this phase, so little knowledge about this. So our role was to search for the open source tools and test them. It was in the COVID pandemic, so we had a lot of time to test all kinds of tools. We wrote manuals for archivists, because the partners in the project didn't have a technical background, and we tried to make manuals that were as easy to use as possible, so archiving social media for dummies, we call it. We also did a lot of technical support during the pilot projects, and we also tested the commercial tools. So the requirements for the tools that were defined by archivists were that they had to be easy to use and install, because they had no technical background. But on the contrary, there was also a need to have automated tools that didn't ask too much time to archive a social media account. They also wanted that the archive contains all posts or tweets, images, videos, comments, likes, reactions, etc., and that it contained the original look and feel. This was not an easy quest, so we advised them to use a combination of tools. And finally, we developed 4 strategies, which I will explain now. The first one is the self-archiving strategy. This is that you can, as an account owner, so as a user of social media, you can download the content of your account. So there's some kind of hidden in the settings. You have a button to archive all your content. This is the most user-friendly method, but can only be done by the producer. It's also the most reliable method, a safe method, because it's allowed by the social media platforms. But it only contains your own content, so it doesn't contain comments of other people, it doesn't contain likes, reactions, and it has a different layout. And I heard it's only possible in the European Union because of the European legislation. So I think in the US you can't download all your content. So this is an example of my Twitter archive. It's accessible, you can filter through your content, etc. The second workflow is scrolling. It's like a bot that goes over the page and downloads everything that's on the page. This is mostly an automated workflow. It contains comments, likes, but there's also content missing because Facebook, for example, defines for you what you think is interesting. So all the comments that Facebook thinks you don't find interesting is hidden. The easy-to-use tools are time-consuming, and the others require technical skills. And there are also a lot of bugs. Sometimes it just stops, then it stops working. So this is not the most reliable option, but it's a good option if you want to preserve look and feel. And this is an example of the Instagram of the Flemish Parliament. I think it was archived with archive.page, one of the easy-to-use tools. Then the third strategy was data scraping. That is a bot that goes over the text and extracts all text of a page. Some tools use the official API, and then it's a bit limited. Some tools don't, and then you have the danger of getting blocked. So this gives more complete archives. It's fast, it's also automated. But it contains only text, and it also has limitations. And the most downside of this workflow is that all these tools that we tested doesn't work anymore because they are all blocked by the social media platforms. This is an example of a CSV. It's a Facebook scraper that extracts text from a Facebook account. It contains reactions, comments, your description, also links to the images. The fourth strategy is the media download. That is the strategy we use for services that depend highly on media, like YouTube or Instagram. So this strategy downloads all the images and the videos, and you can also download captions and comments in a text, in a structured text format. So this is also a strategy that is complete, it's automated, it's fast, but it also requires technical background because these are mostly command line tools, and you also have the danger of getting blocked. So in Lode, for example, for Instagram, several of our partners were getting blocked from Instagram. Then we also tested the commercial tools. More in general, maybe they mostly had a dashboard that was easy to use. We used Page Freezer and Web Preserver. They are actually two tools of the same company. But we noticed that they didn't export well the content, so we wanted always a WARC file, but there was always content missing, or there was something wrong with it. It was empty. They were mostly good in exporting in PDF, but that's not really interesting for us. We also tested Archive It, which is a service of the Internet Archive. It consists of open source tools they develop, but we noticed that they also couldn't archive the the services of Meta, so Instagram and Facebook, it was always stuck at the login page, and we only got the login page in the archive file. So the conclusion was that commercial tools are not better than open source tools, which wasn't really a surprise to us, but it was to our project partners a surprise. And so it was not all rainbows and unicorns, and Lode will tell you all about the issues we encountered.
So the first technical, well, it wasn't really a technical issue, it was we underestimated the expertise of our users, and we noticed that we had to make the guides as low level as possible. Installing software on users' computer was difficult in some cases when there was like in a very strict IT environment. There's the tools that didn't make it through the project. So like Nastasia already said, the Facebook scraper stopped. SNScrape was a really good tool, but was blocked on all platforms, so rest in peace. Twark was a really good tool, command line tool to archive tweets, but then Elon Musk came along and made the API access paid, so commercial, and until now we can't really access the Twitter API anymore. BrowserTricks got archived midway during the project and changed into BrowserTricks crawler. The web recorder stopped activity and changed to archive web page, and there are still difficulties with keeping up with the code changes of the platforms and a lot of unresolved issues. The unexpected issues were the illegitimate DMCA takedown by the Recording Industry Association of America on October 23 of the YouTube DL GitHub repository, claiming it had like material that they had rights on and stuff like that. So thank you EFF for helping YouTube DL reinstate its GitHub repository. Then the rate limiting, which is already what Nastasia kind of hinted on. It's a way of websites to prevent automated requests and to check if you're a bot or not. But of course, we're archivists, at least my colleagues. So it's a lot of hearsay and a lot of checking. How can we prevent and do random pauses at some time and stuff like that. A lot of tools already have built-in ways to circumvent rate limiting, but it's not an exact science, and if you do too much, you'll get blocked or limited anyway, and there's like timeouts. The blocking, which is already mentioned, do not use an organization account or a personal account that you don't want to get blocked, or it might get banned. If you think I will just use a VPN, it's not very ideal because they use the same IP addresses and they will just block the IP address. And then Instagram is particularly nasty because it will mark your account and it'll think that you're hacked, and then I think Nastasia had the experience of her account being marked as hacked, and then she had to reinstate the password and stuff like that. So for the solutions part, we keep the guides as simple as possible because every user's might be the first time when the interaction with the terminal. So every time we mention the terminal, we get a piece, we copy paste the piece, how to use it, how to install Python. The guides need to be kept up to date. Because platforms change and open source tools also change. There's a colleague network that we participate in to keep each other up to date, and the combined strategies of the one tool to get the data, like YouTube comments, YouTube comment downloader, for example, and then another tool to get the layout of the YouTube website. For instance, this is only an example. And see that my little European flag got misplaced, but the self-archiving tool is, by our knowledge, only available in the EU. So for the lessons learned, the requirements of our partners were a little bit unrealistic for one tool to fit. So it doesn't really exist, the perfect tool to do everything you need. And remember to make a dedicated archive account and then make sure it doesn't get blocked, or try to make it as human as possible so that it doesn't get blocked again. So you make a dedicated archive account or more. For privacy reasons, like the screenshot from Nastasia here, if you archive on your personal account, you will get messages and likes and connections to your friends in the archive. So that's why it's better to make a dedicated account. So for archivists, we try to accept incomplete accounts. I know it's difficult, but it's realistic. We noticed that there is, we realized that there is a high dependency on the open source tools, which is difficult, but it's realistic. So we wrote a guide and the tool gets changed and we need to rewrite the guide again. Update the guides. We have posted our guides on MediaWiki, so it's a Project Zest website. We can collaborate with our partners to update the guides together and testing the workflow, see if the archive web.page manages to get farther or whatever. Sometimes it stops and then different tools also stop on different parts and check if it's still working. I think Nastasia already mentioned that the commercial tools are very expensive and they're absolutely not better. This also might be that the goal of the commercial tools is different than the open source tools. We noticed that social media changed their code a lot. Really a lot, so it's really hard for developers to keep up with all the changes. We understand and we just adapt. And in the best case, the tools stop working for a little bit and then the developer finds time and we're very grateful and they update the tool and they continue to work. The cookie policy was in particularly difficult. It meant that a lot of the tools needed to be updated to circumvent the cookie policy pop-up, at least in the EU. The archive size can be quite big depending if you want to look and feel, but also if you're downloading YouTube videos with the description and the subtitles, everything put together. Still a question on how to ingest it into the digital asset management system, how to consult it. And we noticed that a lot of archive systems are not ready to ingest web archives. It also takes a lot of time to make a complete archive. That's also why I said accept incomplete archives, because it takes a long time, especially if you're considering rate limiting, preventing your account to be blocked and stuff like that. The other lesson we learned is to move tools to a new version. Like for instance, YouTube.dl is quite slower in updates. There is a new one, there is a fork of YouTube.dl, so we moved on to YouTube YT-DLP. And then special mention for Facebook. Facebook is a particularly challenging one. Instead, it changed its code a lot. And the fake or archive account detection is very good, extremely good. So it meant that we had to start over again. The rate limiting is also, they are very good at rate limiting. It's a bit of a problem to get around it. And especially for archive.page, Facebook archives are difficult to consult, since there are so many dynamic elements on the page that are going on, so it's difficult for archive.page to load them all and to get them to look nice. And that's the end. Questions?
Amazing, thank you for this presentation. May I steal the first question? So, is there any example how do the data look like when they're extracted?
Well, in the best case,
I think you can see it. You mean the files itself, or how you replay it?
Yeah, probably. I would be interested how to read it as a human after it's downloaded and stuff.
It's not mentioned in the presentation, but we archive it in a work file, and there is a website. It's called replayweb.page, and there you can just open and access it. This one is like the viewer. So it just looks like you're on the social media platform.
Perfect, thank you. More questions?
Hello. You mentioned that in the EU there's different laws that allows users to download their things. Did you consider contacting the companies and tell them we are archiving public information? Would you help us doing it? And if not, we'll ask the EU to help us force you to do it. And you could, so doing that, you could contact other people doing the same thing in different countries in the EU to have more power to push for that.
We didn't do it personally because we were more on the side of the tools, but maybe our colleagues did. We have a network in the Netherlands and in Flanders, and it would be nice indeed to have a bigger network to contact the social media services. Yes.
This is really cool. Thanks for sharing this and some of the challenges. Have you? So Mastodon's obviously getting big based on the ActivityPub standard. Have you done anything with Mastodon? And while the protocol is still growing, is there anything missing in it that would help your efforts in future?
As for now, I haven't looked at the ActivityPub related websites like Lemmy and Mastodon. We focused only on the bigger ones. Because we are working with other partners, they basically set the line and tell us, these are platforms that are important for us to archive. And so, yeah, that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you for great presentation. It might be, so I don't know if I've missed something, but you had like 4 strategies, and it's maybe a silly idea, but normally the way you can very quickly kind of, archive something, it's just by doing a screen grab or screenshots. So have you been thinking that potentially some hardware accelerated and script running kind of tool could be screen grabbing or screenshotting your entire Instagram feed?
Right.
It would be like, I don't know, meters long.
So for most platforms that work with endless feed, they stop feeding you content if you scroll too long. Then they'll just play like, you seem to be scrolling here for a long time. And then again, it's like the rate limiting and the bot detection. So, and I think a lot of commercial tools also use the screenshot technique. Yeah. But for the open source tool and to automate it, you run into the bot detection after a while.
Yeah, and our partners also find it important that it's possible to go through the websites and
searchable
and make it searchable and open both. So for them, the screenshots aren't usable.
Have you both done any experiments with recording Facebook groups? Have you had any success? Because I'd love to hear about that, because I have a group that I feel obligated to.
Yeah, so during the pandemic in Belgium, there was a guy who went a little crazy and wanted to attack one of the proponents of the vaccine, and they made groups in secret on Facebook, and I went into the groups and started archiving them. They were very right-winged, and I just used archive.web.page to collect everything as much as possible, and those are now, the archives I made are now in an archive in Antwerp. So yeah, it works with archive.page.
Isn't it possible to trick the bot detection by randomizing the bot behavior a little bit?
We tried. Yeah. Okay. A long time. And most of the time you can set randomizers, timeouts, different versions, timeout in a set interval, and then stuff like that. We tried. But eventually you run into some bot detection, and if it's not the rate limiting, then they'll detect that you don't have any connections on the platform, you're not really a real human and stuff like that. And unfortunately, if you want to be a real human account, then you risk your own human access to the platform as well.
A question from the live stream here. When data scraping with tools that create a CSV, such as like Twitter accounts, can it harvest images as well?
You have to, so it gives you an URL, and you can use wget or other tools to download the images. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yeah, they're in the. My second question.
So I know there's a whole network of alternative front-end projects that some privacy-conscious people use. So there are like Nita for Twitter, for example. Have you had a look at those too? Because I know they don't retain the styling of the website, but at least they are very good at solving those kinds of access problems and fetching the content.
I know the platforms that you're talking about, but once again, the partners, they are not users of those kind of platforms, so they just didn't list up those versions. But the platform you mentioned for Twitter could be a potential useful alternative to capture the look and feel without being detected or detected less frequently. Yeah, but for Twitter, we mostly tested Spark when we had access to the API. Not anymore.